Welcome to Aloha L'Yunin Rambam. Today's Rambam is Hilchas Sukka, Perek Shishi. Halacha Ches, fascinating halacha. Nisha Yoreshi Verube Basukah. Someone was sitting in the sukkah. He was doing the mitzvah properly. V'shulchone, but his table was b'teicha bayis, was in the house. Chutz l'sukkah, under the sky. V'ochal, and he ate from the food that's on the table while he's sitting in the sukkah. Hareze oser, you're not allowed to do that. It's oser midivri sefer midrabanon. And the Rambam gives a loshon, o ki'ilu le'ochel b'sukkah. It's as if he bechlal didn't eat in the sukkah, and he wasn't yotze. Ad sheyir shulchan b'teicha sukkah. Why? Gezeira shemo yimoshich acher shulchanei. Because maybe he'll forget and eat in the house with his table. Feel it b'sukkah g'deilo. Even if it's in a big sukkah, a big sukkah means it's more. It's more than shiva tvochim. Even in a big sukkah, if the shulchan is not in the sukkah, you're not yotze. Because you have to eat with the shulchan in the sukkah. There's a big shaklavataye in the shoinim, because this is a Mishnah Masechta Sukkah, where there's a machlekes b'shamim b'shilul, and we paskin here like Beis Shammai. And the Gemara says in Sukkah that there's a machlekes, there's a two machlekes. One machlekes in a big sukkah with a table inside the house. Another machlekes if it doesn't have shiva tvochim, if it just has shisha tvochim. So just enough for Rosh V'Rubai. The Rambam paskins that the halacha is like Beis Shammai in both machlokes, whether the sukkah is small and afilu b'sukkah gedeila. In both cases, we paskin like Beis Shammai that it's apostle sukkah. There's a big shakavatay in the Rishonim. What does it mean? Uki'ilu le'ochel b'sukkah. L'cheira, he ate in the sukkah. Midiraisi did the mitzvah of sukkah. What is the lashon ki'ilu le'ochel b'sukkah? The lashon ki'ilu le'ochel b'sukkah is from the lashon HaMishnah. Shammai told Beis Hillel that they saw somebody eating in a sukkah, and shulchanei was with the chabayis. So Beis Shammai told him, and the halacha is like Beis Shammai, in keino yisoneyeg lekiyamto mitzvah sukkah miyomecha, that you didn't do the mitzvah of sukkah. So the Ran and the Ritva say that it means that you didn't do the mitzvah midrabanan correctly. However, some people say pshat, it's a tesis, a sukkah of gimel, that Tesis says that midiraisa you're not yetz in the mitzvah for sukkah. The question is, with what koyach could Chazal say that you didn't do the mitzvah in sukkah? But by the way, there's an interesting shaila. If someone is sitting in a very small sukkah, but he doesn't have a small table to fit into the sukkah, he's sitting in a small apartment, in a condo, he has a little porch, he has a shiva tvochim, but he doesn't have a small table that's a tefach. But he has a big table, and the table is in the sukkah, and most of it sticks out into the house, but he has enough of a table that he could eat on. There's a fascinating machlekes brought down in Siman Tofish Lamed Daled. The Magen Avraham says that it's enough that you have your tefach. That's what the size of the shulchan has to be, 3 inches. even though the rest of the table is not. But the Birkei Yosef, the Chido says that you have to have 51% of the table in the sukkah. Because the Gzeira is Shemo Yimoshech Achar Shulchone, that maybe you'll go after the table, so you're eating in the sukkah, you may want something that's a little further on the table. Interesting machlekes that the post can bring down. But the question is, why do we say that it's not a mitzvah sukkah? It's interesting, they bring down that Tosfos says, Tosfos l'shitosam, since they say in Masechta Pesachim, but the famous saying that we say in the Haggadah, Kol mishal yomer shleisha dvarim elu leyotzi dechivosar, the elu hein Pesach matzamoreh, that it means literal. You are not yetzi the mitzvah Haggadah. Shenema va'amartem zevach Pesach. You have to say Pesach al shem Pesach. So they say what that where Chazal says in the Mishnah, Kol mishal yomer shleisha dvarim elu. It means literal. They weren't yetzi deiraisa. So the same way they learn here Pshat in the Mishnah in Sukka, and it's from Loshna Rambam is muchach that way, that lei kiyamta mitzvah Sukka miyomecha also means that you weren't yetzi the mitzvah for Sukka. So we have to understand another kasha. The Rambam says, in yesterday's Rambam, Perek Hamishi, you have to make sukkah from stuff that smell good. And if you don't make it from stuff that smell good, it's not a. Avoim ovar v'sichich bedover hanoivel bedover sherei chira ksheira. Why should there be a difference between a small sukkah with a shulchan? That there we say ki'ilu le'ochel b'sukkah klal, and why is a dover sherei chira kosher b'di'evet? Why should there be a difference? What's the main reason that you can't have a sukkah that's small? You can't have a sukkah that's small because it's not a comfortable dira. So something that smells is also not a comfortable dira. So why should there be a difference in the Gzeiras Chazal, whether it's dover sherei chira or if it's a smaller sukkah? Gzeiras shema yimoshech achar shulchano. So first of all, it's brought down in the Poskim that it depends how bad it smells. If it smells very bad, it's a terrible smell, then it's posel min hatera. Very interesting. But if it's bearable, so it doesn't smell right, only then do we say that with the evidence kosher. But let's go further. We have to understand the difference between Dakonis Chazal. But if you say that by Dover that Reiche is terrible, then you're not also not yetzer the mitzvah sukkah, it's understood. But we have to understand with what keyach did Chazal say that it's not a sukkah. The Shitta from Tosfos and the Shitta from Rambam, which by the way, there isn't such an afgemina ledina, alocha l'maisa, there's no difference. Brought down a simit of Ishlam Dalit, because according to both opinions, you don't have, if you ate the kazayas the first night and the shulchan was in the house, you have to eat over the kazayas, the raisa, the rabbonim. The shaila will be, and the Mishnah Bruder wants to say there's a shaila that if you eat over the kazayas, do you have to make a brocha, leisha basukah again, according to the shit of Rambam and Tosfos? But the Mishnah Berurah says, since there's so many poskim that say that you yoytze v'deiraisa and sofik brachas lahakol, you shouldn't make a bracha. Anyways, but the word is With what koyach, pshat, with what koyach do Chazal come and say that it's not a mitzvah? So there is a interesting Prima Godim. Prima Godim in his opening remarks, the Hilchas Krishma, says that according to Tesis, the Chachomim have the koyach to be mafkia your mitzvah. We have to understand with what koyach, how could they be mafkia the mitzvah? So the Dvar Avrom, he brings that the reason Chazal could take away your mitzvah because it's a mitzvah boba aveda. Since they say that you're not allowed to do the mitzvah, so mitzvah boba aveda, we learn in Masechta Sukka in the third Perek, it's mevatel the mitzvah, it's apostle of mitzvah. Which aveda is it? The aveda of leisosur. It says that the Torah says that you can't go away from the divrei chachomim. You're over. It was a mitzvah boba aveda. Even though it says, for example, we all know the Gemara that says that Godel koved abriyas shedeches leises shabatim. That if it's a inyan of koved abriyas, so then if it's a isur rabbanon, it's deicha leises shabatim leisos. But if it's a inyan deiraisa, then we say ein chelkin koved larav. There's no inyan of koved abriyas. So the shaila is, if Isad Rabbanan is also leisosor, so it's just as strong as any other mitzvah deiraisa. And the answer is that in a place of where it negates koved abriyas, so the chachomim weren't geizer. So there's no leises shabbatero. But then the fashin the loshen godel koved abriyas shadeches leises shabbatero. But if it's a mitzvah boba aveda, even if it's the aveda of leisosor, it's strong enough to be mafkir the mitzvah. It makes it apostle of mitzvah. Other people wanted to say something fascinating. How could the chachomim take away the mitzvah? So in the Dvar Avrom, he brings from Rabbi Elio Baruch Kamai, he brings a pshat of his, that just like we find by get, that we say, Afkinu Rabbanon l'Kiddushim minei. How did the Chachamim make it ois Kiddushim? Because they take away from him, they have hefker best and hefker. So the money wasn't his, so he couldn't be Mekadesh. So they make the Kiddushim deiraisa ois Kiddushim. The same way here, the Chachomim are mafkia from him. The bailis on a sukkah, they have power to do it because hefker best and hefker. And they're not yotze the mitzvah. They're not yotze the mitzvah because it's not his sukkah. But it's a shmera answer to say that that's the way it works. Because if that's the way it works, we find that if you go, we learned in the Rambam, yesterday's Rambam, that if you go to your friend and you kick him out of his sukkah, you sit in his sukkah, you're still yoytze because karken and exelis. So here you're going to say that it's a sukkah gzula and you're not yoytze because of that. Hard to understand. Another answer which is given, that if you're afraid that the person will be yimoshech acher shulchonei, so it's not considered, you're not considered living there. It's not teishvu kein to duru. It's not a comfortable dida. But a very interesting answer. But according to this, we need more explanation. What's the difference from this and the schach sherechi ra? Why by schach sherechi ra we say that takon? It's a similar takon. It's a takon because it's not comfortable. So why over there we say that it's kosher? And why over here do we say that it's ki'ilu le'ochel b'sukkah klal? Because it's such a gzeira. Could be we could say the difference between the gzeiras is as follows. By sukkah that's not comfortable, gzeira, maybe he'll leave the sukkah, but he knows, he's cognizant of the fact that he left the sukkah. So we don't want to make it that way. But here, the gzeira shemo yimoshech ach shulchonei, and he'll still think he's eating in the sukkah. He won't realize. Without realizing it, he will be over on the mitzvah of sukkah. He won't leave the sukkah. He'll just stick his head out to get something from the shulchan. So over there, they made the gzeira stronger. But al kaponim, it's fascinating how the gzeiras chazal by sukkah are very strong. They're so strong that they make it as if it's not a sukkah. We also find in Hilchas Sukkah, fascinating halacha, that if you have a neser, a board, that's arbet v'chim, and on one side it's less than arbet v'chim, even if you turn it over, it's possible a schach, because the chachamim were geyser on the schach that it's possible. If you say it's only because gzeira shemo yeshiv tachas tikro, says Rabbi Yosef Engel, so now that it's narrower than arbet v'chim, you turned it over on its side, it should be a kosher and schach. But the chachamim made it kishfudin shel matchas, it becomes mamish possible. It becomes a cheftze from possible schach. And he wants to be done in the, if he's suri d'rabbanan or he's suri cheftze or not. So we find here also by this gzeira shemo yimoshech acha shulchonei that ki'ilu eini sukkah klal. The gzeiras chazal by sukkah, according to Tesis in the Rambam, are such strong gzeiras that it makes it totally possible. Sukkah is a very special time, Sukkah. Sukkah is a time where we show our love to Hashem. And Hashem shows the love to us. And in mitzvahs the Rabbonon, the Rebbe once said, Fabrengen, Simchas Beis Sheva, Tavshikov Dalet, I think. I heard from Rabbi Mendy Cohen, who told me about that Fabrengen. The Rebbe said the difference between mitzvahs the Eraisa, mitzvahs the Rabbonon, and Aminik. The Rebbe said that a father comes with a son, and he's hot, and he tells his son, please bring me a cup of water. That's a mitzvah the Eraisa. The father has nachas if the son brings him the cup of water. Then there's another mitzvah, there's another situation where the son doesn't say he wants a cup of water. The father doesn't say he wants a cup of water, he says it's so hot. And the son brings him a cup of water, that's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Then there's the son, father doesn't say anything, and the son brings him something, that's a minute. So since Sukkah is the great Ava of Hashem to Klal Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael's great Ava, Hashem. So we find that mitzvahs d'Rabbanan are so strong as ki'ilu le'ochel b'sukkah. It's al derech hadrush, and it becomes a cheftz of apostle sukkah. But kichlei saka, we still need to understand the difference between shemo yimoshech achas shulchonei and between schach, sherechi ra, and zal der Eibishter helfen with everything good for everybody. Shalom.